Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and you guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community, and numerous people have linked me a video by Pete Rubish discussing the above-the-knee rack pull, which again is something that I feel very, very strongly about, and people need to remember that. There's a reason AlphaDestiny and I actually had our first real falling out, and we had our problems years ago, comes down to purely him promoting this exercise, right? That's it. That was the entirety of why we first started arguing, why there was a beef between us. And it's a big deal. It really is the worst exercise that's ever been promoted on YouTube Fitness that I recall ever. And the fact that he helped popularize it makes me really dislike him. But let's go ahead and listen to what Pete Rubish had to say about it.
Tough to do. Number 4, I love this question. What do you think about rack pulls above the knees from 4K, 60 FPS, nature and city walks? I think rack pulls above the knees are completely pointless and an ego lift that serves no purpose but to destroy barbells. I think rack pulls in general are a pointless ego lift that destroys bars. If you're going to do rack pulls, do block pulls. That's it. End of story. I will never have anyone do rack pulls because it kills your bars. And each bar costs like $300-400. So you're ruining a bar. And especially above the knees, it's dumb. Like, you could load up 1,000,000 pounds. Anyone could be like, oh, I freaking rack pulled 1,000 pounds. It's like, it doesn't do anything. There's no carryover. In fact, I even question to an extent how much block pulls have a carryover for a lot of people, even deficits. So it's like, I will never do rack pulls, and especially above the knee. That is outrageous. This gets me into a side rant. Guys, if you're gonna miss a squat, set it down gently on the pins. Put the pins high enough where it's barely giving you clearance. So like, people put the pins way too low and then they miss a squat and just throw it off their back. You just ruined a $400 barbell. Like, it's my biggest pet peeve in lifting. It's the number 1 sin. The number 2 sin is doing rack pulls above the knees. Do not drop a bar off your back. You jack it up. It's bent forever. You drop a bar off your back once and it hits the pins, you warp the bar. The bar's going to roll on people now and kill people.
All right then. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 head of Speechcraft, and let's talk about this. All right, this is a big deal because this is, again, more people who have various bona fides who are coming out saying this is a garbage exercise, like Dr. Mike Israetel was an example. That's a legitimate, real authority, has been on YouTube and has said it is a stupid exercise, right? And if something is literally a stupid exercise, or you have someone like Pete Rubish, again, tremendous world-class level power lifter, and a good coach himself, is saying it is probably one of the most stupid exercises he's ever seen. I mean, there's a difference between saying something's not that good and all these actual experts and top athletes and coaches who are saying this is stupid. Do you guys understand the difference? There's a difference between it's a bad idea, it's not a good idea, it's not that great, and it is stupid. It's worthless and stupid. Do you understand how bad an exercise has to be for experts to actually say that? Because do experts say that about any exercise? No, they usually say, no, most exercises have a valid use somewhere. They have a valid use somewhere. Yet with this specific one, they're all saying it's stupid and useless. And everyone agrees it doesn't even grow your traps. And yet here we are now. We have 3 good-sized fitness YouTubers who have now promoted it. You've got AlphaDestiny. You have ScottHermanFitness, and that's the worst thing Scott's ever done. Like, if Scott actually dropped that point and admitted he was wrong, I would clown him very, very little, because most of what Scott says is pretty much true, right? But the above-the-knee rack pull, and he defends it. He defends it, which again tells me that he might sound like he knows what he's talking about, but he is actually a complete moron purely for defending that exercise the way he has. Like, he clearly doesn't understand training programming. He's actually stupid and just copies a couple of smart people to come up with a few basic ideas, which are right. But because of the fact that he can't see that the above-the-knee rack pull is bad, he doesn't actually know anything. He doesn't actually know anything himself. He doesn't. And that's proof of it. And that's all I can say about it. I actually like him outside of that, but that gives away the reality. And then Jeff Nippard, now promoting it, doing it with AlphaDestiny. Again, someone who pretends to be all this science-based and evidence-based, who would actually promote something like that. Again, a perfect example of someone who really doesn't understand training. Doesn't understand training. And it's just sad. It's sad that a lot of these guys do have a big outreach and their information is that bad. So let's talk about some of the things that Pete said here. And I'm glad someone else said it, because you guys have heard me say the same thing about block pulls, right? I'm like, don't do rack pulls, do block pulls if you need to do a partial. And everyone is scared to say it, because it's like a lot of times people say, well, yeah, using Junker Jordan Feidenbaum is smart, and he has below the knee rack pulls. And I always say, I understand that below the knee rack pulls. I would never say an above the knee. I'll say below the knee rack pulls maybe have their place in training programming, right? They do have their place for certain weak point training. But please do them on blocks. Do them on blocks, right? If you feel that exercise is so important that you have to work it in, I would go ahead and dish out for some blocks. And the reason I would say that is that the blocks to live off of are going to be cheaper than new barbells, all right? And Pete kind of brought up that point of you're destroying people's equipment in gyms. You are destroying barbells even with the below the knee. So, and he actually questions the carryover even of the below the knee. And that's kind of one of those that is interesting, because so many champions and championship winning coaches and coaches of world record holders do use the below the knee rack pull off of pins or off of blocks, that it's just accepted by a lot of us that it has its place. It's just accepted by a lot of us that it has its place. But really, we could argue that it really is just breaking up your the law of accommodation a little bit by doing a slight variation. Right? And it forces you to use a lighter weight. Well, the exact same benefit that people are getting from the below the knee rack pull, I've always argued, I feel can be done with various degrees of deficit deadlifts. I think you can get the exact same effect. Or, again, you could go to a deficit and pull on chains, just to change your strength curve a little bit, right? That's it. And you can do that, and then you avoid beating up bars. You can reduce the amount of weight you're using for less axial loading. And again, you don't destroy equipment. And that's a big deal, because again, the argument of if there's a benefit or not is in question, but we know that it damages equipment. We know that it damages bars. Bars are expensive, and it comes back to that point of what Pete had pointed out, is that people get hurt. Serious lifters actually get hurt and injured because of bent bars in a gym. And essentially anything that destroys barbells in a gym should be discouraged, because none of this stuff is necessary. All these exercises and things that people do that destroy bars in gyms, not one of them are required to become a world level champion. Right? Let's do that again. Not one of them are required to become a world level champion. They're all optional exercises. Oftentimes ego or bad form and stuff involved in order to bend bars. So anything that's bending a bar isn't actually required to reach your goals. You're just doing it just because. But the side effect is that you are injuring people, you're hurting people. People have been seriously hurt because of bent bars. So you're destroying equipment and you're creating an unsafe environment just because you want to do something different, because you saw some ass clown on YouTube doing it. And literally, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that because those three guys that promoted this exercise, I know AlphaDestiny doesn't know shit about training. He doesn't. He really and truly doesn't. I mean, he gets by because he trains hard and he's been training long enough, and he popped a little bit of stuff a couple of years back, and that's helped him with certain things with upper body, but he still can't deadlift or squat. But the point is that his grasp of training isn't particularly good, and he's not a particularly bright guy. I expected more out of Jeff Nippard, but the fact that Jeff grasped onto that and did that with him and thought it would be a good idea to promote it makes me view Jeff as again, a complete ass clown on top of it. And then the same thing with Scott Herman. I mean, you guys have to be realistic here. If you're following people who do an exercise that all these coaches and experts say is useless, it's stupid, and it destroys equipment, and you're still following these people, or you're following their advice on it, it's time to really rethink the people who are putting out information and the quality of the advice that they're giving at that point. That's a fair point to say, okay, maybe these guys really don't know what they're talking about. Maybe they really don't. Maybe there's better sources of information, and I've just got to be honest about that. That's how I feel when I see people promoting that, because it is literally the worst trend I have ever seen promoted on YouTube Fitness. It really is. It really is, and it needs to be killed off. And it's only going to be killed off by people continually saying, hey, look, this is stupid, and the people promoting it are stupid, and they're promoting dangerous, stupid advice. Stop listening to them, or you as their followers call them out on this one thing. Call them out on it and they'll quit doing it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.